We all looked about 20 years younger, and it was only 3 years ago.
It's only 3 years ago.
That's 20 years and 3 years.
Welcome everyone, welcome committee members, community board members, members of the staff and those joining us online. The regular reminder, please, if you have your devices or cell phones, please ensure that they're either switched off or on silent mode whilst the meeting is in progress. And we will wait for the device to be muted should it ring or sound during the meeting. The meeting is being held in the supper room of the Waihina Centre, Martin Borough Town Hall. It is being live streamed and will be available to view on the council's YouTube channel. We are all aware of the emergency exit, so we'll primarily use this one today because of the work happening. So in the event of emergency, please go this way rather than being trampled by machinery that way. Please join me in this morning's karakia. I'm very, very excited to tell you that they are also beautifully placed on the wall for everyone to be able to see and use. So if we start with the opening karakia, please. Yeah, what are the Thank you, and thank you to those that got those. We have apologies this morning from Councillor Elams, who was away on business. Don't have a mover to accept the apology. Thank you, Councillor Gray, and seconded by Councillor Maynard. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, no. Motion is carried.
So you said Asian too, didn't you?
I just said, it, sorry. There are any conflicts of interest to declare this morning. Wonderful. Do we have any acknowledgements or tributes this morning? No. Do we, please? So we've got no public participation registered for this morning's meeting. So any urgent business that anyone has for today? Zooming through. Matters arising from previous minutes? No, because we don't have previous minutes. We're also doing previous meetings. Sorry. Wonderful. So the first of our incredibly important decisions to be made today is the adoption of the Local Water Done Well Delivery Model Options Consultation Document. Try saying that 5 times fast. So we'll now move on to item 8.1. The consultation document is in front of you. It has been created in part with our potential collaboration partners from Tararoa, Preston and Carterton. So you will see that parts of the document that talk to a combined entity, that those parts have been created with oversight from the advisory oversight group, and that part has been endorsed unanimously to be used by all 4 councils, and the bits that talk specifically to South Wairarapa are obviously created by specifically for us, and in the documents for the other councils they will have their own unique information in there as well. So that's how that document has come to be. So can I just foreshadow the amendment? And just to foreshadow that there is a slight amendment to recommendation number 4. Number 3. I have it as number 4.
Okay, cool.
To just acknowledging that the minutes of the advisory oversight group meetings will be released once all 4 participating councils have adopted their delivery option models consultation documents, and then those documents from those meetings will be released as well. So we'll deal with that later. Can we start by receiving the adoption of the Local Water Done Well delivery model options consultation document report. Thank you, Martin, and seconded by councillor Maynard. And all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, no.
Aye.
Motion is carried. And can we please invite Robin? Can I talk? Okay, so just Robin, take a seat. And just for the benefit, more so of anyone watching, just to introduce Robin and let you know that she has led the advisory group and a team of subject matter experts through this process to get us to this report today. So Robin, if you'd like to take the document as read, but guide us through points of importance and highlights for you.
Thank you very much. And I want to acknowledge all the other project team members that have participated over the last several months in putting this together. Last year we had a number of meetings around reducing down options around who we potentially could be working with in delivery of our water services in the future. So under the suite of legislation that the government's been introducing, we are invited to work collaboratively with other councils, and we are required to deliver a water services plan to the Secretary of Government by the 3rd of September of this year. So this, what we're talking about today, this consultation document, is a key part of any water services delivery plan that we submit by September this year. And in that we have to talk about how we are proposing in the future to deliver our water services, whether we will be delivering it with other councils and in what form of entity we may be using to deliver the water service in the future. You'll recall last year we reduced down our options. We decided to exit the Wellington Regional Group and that we wanted to continue to develop what at that time we were calling White Plus B, now calling Wairau Aotearoa option. And we continue to develop that option alongside the advisory oversight group. I think what's important to highlight in the consultation document that you're looking at today is, first of all, that we are taking advantage of the alternative consultation and decision-making requirements that were enabled under legislation by the government. What that says is that we are required to look at what our existing approach to deliver water services is, and then we can identify one or more proposed future options. What you have in front of you is that we are proposing one alternative to the existing approach, being the Wairau Aotearoa approach. We're also required to assess advantages and disadvantages of all options. We need to make all that information publicly available, and we have to ensure that the communities have a good understanding of the implications of any of these proposals. Now, the way that we are ensuring that the communities have a good understanding of implications, we've identified the implications of ownership, governance, delivery, accountability and funding. We've also addressed the issues of what each proposal would, the impact on rates, charges, debt and levels of service. And that's all within the consultation document that you have in front of you. I want to address the elephant in the room straight away, which is we are proposing a council controlled organisation. And some people would say, well, is this just not Wellington Water Part 2? What's going to be different with this water services council controlled organisation that we are proposing as an alternative to our existing arrangements? Well, first of all, we've got an option with 4 very similar sized communities in the 4 councils that have been proposed in this CCO. They face like challenges, they share iwi cultural ties. They're not metro and rural as Wellington Water is. We've got 4 very similar rural councils proposing to work together. In the future, there are going to be consumer protection requirements and financial reporting requirements and capabilities that any future CCO will have to abide by. Also, the existing Wellington Water model, there was real fragmentation of accountabilities. It was a trusted advisor model. That is not what we're proposing in this future CCO water services entity that we're proposing in the future. So the assets would be transferred into this new entity. They would be responsible for delivering via a statement of expectations. There would be a governance structure in place, a shareholder council with representatives of councils and iwi representatives, and there would be an independent board. And all of this would be managed, and accountability and affordability would be addressed through the regulators and the legislation that's been put in place. So it is a different model to what we have been under with Wellington Water. The other thing that you'll see mentioned in the consultation document is that there have been these recent Wellington Water reports that have come out in the last couple of days. The numbers that we have used in our consultation document are aligned with our long-term plan numbers. We have not gone back and redone any numbers. So I think that the numbers that we have used in all of our modelling are very conservative. So they are based on what we currently have in our long-term plan. The financial model that we've used itself, there is a FAQ at the back around insurances around that model. The fact that we have used LTP numbers for all the other councils in our draft LTP numbers. We have had what was called Crown Infrastructure Partners. It's now got a new name, Infrastructure NIFF. So they've had some oversight into the model. We have been talking to DIA all the way through, and we have been talking to the local government funding organisation on the financial modelling that we've been doing that's incorporated into our consultation documents. Each individual council has been modelling their own existing approach, and they have their own consultation document. But together we have been developing the Wairau option and the implications that has been seen in the projected charges into the future are similar within each of the 4 councils' consultation documents. The underlying inputs are the LTP numbers. The assumptions on page 14 of the document are quite important because all projected charges that we have here are subject to a number of assumptions, and they're also the high level numbers that we put into all of these projected charges into the future. So when we look at the assumptions, we are proposing that there would be a go live date of the 1st of July 2026. We've assumed that the new water entity will be collecting revenue on behalf of the 4 councils in managing the stormwater assets under the service arrangements. So we do include stormwater in all of the indicative projected charges in the future. We've been conservative in projecting any efficiency improvements under the CCO. We're not projecting any efficiency until year 4 after establishment. There is a $5 million cost of establishment that we put in here for this new entity. And we've also put the estimated additional costs for compliance and levies that are coming through that the government's requiring under the new legislation within the model. And those new regulatory charges take effect from 1st of July 2025. And yes, there'll be additional establishment and compliance costs. So again, as I've said, these are projected charges for an average connection. So it would have been far too complex for us to have gone through and figured out all charges for a domestic user, an industrial user, somebody in all of the different ways that we currently charge for water. So it's a average connection. It is not averaged across the 4 councils. Each council is showing what the CCO would be and then what it would be for their district. So we haven't standardised or harmonised pricing across the 4 entities. The reason we haven't done that is that is something that the future CCO would decide on, and also the Commerce Commission on how they want to address pricing in terms of service delivery to different areas and affordability for the communities. That's not a decision that we would be making right now. Options 1 and 2, so 1 Wairepa Tararua and 2 the existing approach are 2 different funding models, but the inputs are the same to both and the outputs are apples to apples. But because the existing approach is done under a local government, we're collecting for depreciation. And the option 1, the Wairepa Tararua, is not. Slightly different mechanisms within the model, but the inputs are the same and the outputs are apples to apples. We have modeled over 20 years, although we only have an LTP that goes over 10 years. And the reason we've modeled over 20 years is that South Wairepa in particular has a lot of investment that it needs to make over the next 8 to 9 years, particularly in our 4 wastewater treatment plants. So we are a large contributor to the investment required in the next 8 years. But after that, some of the other councils also have significantly high investments that they don't have to make. So we did model through the 20 years, so you could see that. They need to understand that although it might look that South Wairepa is the largest requirement for investment, their time is coming as well. Guaranteed. There are in here, you will see that we have projected what water charges could be over those 20 years. And over those 20 years, there could be cumulative cost savings for our water users of up to about $16,000 over those 20 years. These are projected charges for an average user. We have made these projections on an uninflated basis. And the reason that we've done that is because in the future, we don't really know what inflation is going to be doing, but the underlying input are the LTP numbers, and each council uses different inflation rates. And so we needed to just bring it down to a consistent way of modelling. And so these are uninflated numbers, including GST. We can make inflated numbers available if required. So I think those are probably the key points. It's hard to bring this down into what is going to be very simple and understandable for everybody, because it is like a complex issue from here. But we hope that we've set this out in a pretty clear and succinct manner. The Wairepa Tararua part of it, the language has been reviewed legally to ensure that we're ticking off all the legislative requirements, because we want to make sure that any consultation document does comply with those legislative requirements, that it's clear to the community, the implications are clear, they understand what it means to them, and that we don't have to come back and do this again because we're doing it at one time. So in this, our conclusion is that we propose that our option 1, Wairepa Tararua, is the preferred proposal to go into our water services delivery plan. Obviously, though, that's the community's decision through this consultation process.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you for a very comprehensive overview of the document and the process to date. You're right. It is a big complex consideration, but I think your team done a stellar job at trying to make not only the words understandable, but the document approachable. You know, to get a manageable document is a good place to start. So thank you for that. Just to kick off the questions, I imagine that within our community there are varying opinions about reform, and some people might be thinking that this document is an opportunity to relay those opinions, and may be surprised to see that actually they're only asked one question and about which of the entity or model options they prefer. Can you just talk to the reason for that, for the benefit of the community to understand actually that kind of reform is set in stone and the path that we're now trying to go from this document?
So clearly under the legislation that's come in by the government, they have introduced these alternative requirements and decision-making processes. So this is not a consultation that you would typically see under the Local Government Act and special consultation process. This is a different process under the Local Water Done Well legislation. So, and we have chosen to use those alternative requirements. So that means that we are required to propose two options and ask the community what their thoughts are about those two options only. This is not a consultation on all practical options. Now, we have looked at all practical options, and we looked at that earlier or late last year, and all that information is available to community on our website. But that this is not a local government special consultative process. This is Local Water Done Well consultation.
Thank you very much for just really simplifying that.
And it is mandatory. You do get to do this.
Yes.
It's no, well, we don't need to do this. We can choose to go with our existing approach, but it will be under new regulations, compliance, and all those things that they require in legislation.
Got any further questions or comments from Robin at this point?
Robin, thank you for the quality of the document that people will read. I always, my first reaction always is, would my grandchild sort of understand this? Would my neighbour understand it? Bearing in mind the level of complexity, etc., that goes with any particular option, I think this is very readable. I also think it sets a tone in terms of pragmatism, because that's actually what this exercise is, and you were just reinforcing it. There's not 100 choices here. There's not 100 options for us. We've got a legal requirement, we've got a date and a deadline, and for people who wish to litigate on any number of sort of things, sorry, that's not up for grabs. It's just, what do you think? It's yes or no, really. And I think people have to understand that that's the position we're in, it's the position they're in. It's very much, dare I say it, a like it or lump it situation. And as you say, we have looked at other alternatives. They've been there. People have had their opportunity to have their say. I think most people that I talk to sort of understand, this is a bit like the train on the tracks. It's just going to go where it's going to go. And we're all accepting of that. I think one thing I do hope they will pay attention to is the cost estimates, because even though I'm confident in saying that those cost estimates, costs for what were ratepayers, water users, have always been available. I certainly get the feeling that a lot of people haven't internally understood what it actually means for them. So again, I think that is clearly laid out in there. So I don't think there's any reason, at least from now on, for people not understanding what this all means. So look, well done to you and your team. I'm grateful to have a document like this when people ask for elaboration or want to complain or whatever, I think this is good to have in my hands. Thank you.
Got no one on the side of goal. Councillor Plummer with his hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. I'll just endorse what Martin just said then. I think this document's fantastic. And Robin, thank you to you and the team, and Colin as you as well. A lot of hard work's been put in, very readable. We've got two points I'd just like to ask. First one on page 10 about the debt ceiling for council. In one of our workshops, we talked very clearly about making sure that the public understand that we are only transferring costs to the new entity and that they will still be being billed. I worry that some people might go, oh, this is a magic fix, and all of a sudden I'm not going to get bills anymore. Well, we need to make sure that that's very clear, that it's sort of like their electricity bill now. They'll be billed by an entity, and I didn't see that in the document. It would be nice to just have that clarity for some people who might not pick up on the intricacies of it. The question I've really got though is about accountability of the board. And it's quite topical, obviously, with yesterday's announcements, and I understand you've all talked about that this morning as well. I just would like to know, what is the is there anything in the legislation, and we've all seen over many, many years, government boards actually have no real accountability. All that happens is they get sacked. But is there actually going to be accountability for board members that if they cock this up, they are personally liable?
I don't think you get an answer to that question. Yeah.
Well, I think it's really important because, you know, we see it all the time with government organisations, that we have these boards and we pay them huge amounts of money, but there's actually no responsibility that goes with it, except the only thing that happens is if they get it wrong, they get sacked. But there is no personal, you know, if I go on as a board onto a board as a director, as some people around the table already know, you are personally liable for the decisions you make, unless you seem to be on a board that's a government or pseudo-government organisation.
I'll have to take that question away. I don't know specifically. It's independent in terms of appointments by the shareholder and iwi committee. But in terms of personal liability, I don't know. I have to take that to formulate. I'm not sure about that.
I think it would be a good one to follow up in line of recent events.
These directors insurance can cover it.
Yeah, yes, those good points, Councillor Plummer. I also like to congratulate you on the document. I think it's very good. I think it's really great too that you have got information on the other options on the website. I think that's really good because, I mean, legally we had to do at least 2 options, but we could legally have looked at more, but it was just a completely impossible timeframe to go in too much detail. But it's really good that we have got some information there for people who had other ideas of other options. But true, yes, I'm really concerned that too that the structuring of this new entity is done properly. True, and as well as the liability aspect or accountability of the boards, I also really want to make sure that the process is done really properly in terms of the totally professional way, and really top people with the skills to actually do the appointments, you know, to make sure the competencies are really defined properly and the assessment is done really, really professionally and not necessarily by no criticism here, but perhaps council staff do not quite these, you know, skills that I really want to make sure that we make a really, this is one chance to make a really good organisation that will last for years and years, I hope.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the processes for appointing the board, the structure, the competencies, the etc., that they fall outside of this document and are yet to be defined.
Yes.
So
Yes.
this feedback is useful, but it doesn't fall inside the document.
Totally preemptive for this.
Colin or Woody?
I'll go first. No, I'll go to the end of Woody. Yeah, right.
Thanks, Melissa. Thanks, Robin. Yeah, great work. I'll start with the elephant in the room. I do have concerns with the Wellington Water report, what's come out with what's been going on there about figures in this document that comes off the LTP document, which is made up of from figures from Wellington Water history. So that does concern me, but I've been assured we can't really do anything about that at the moment, and as things progress, all that will be looked into to get figures correct. I'm also wary of the 500% debt level for ratepayers and what that will mean down the track. One part of the document here, I've got some other questions, but most of them have been answered already, so I'm not going to worry about that to take people's time up. On page 16, you have a graph there with average connections for existing approach and the Wairarapa and Whareroa approach. I thought it would have been nice to have, so that's year 1 to 20 of the new entities. I thought it would have been nice to have the last couple of years without the entity, and so people can see the difference of what the entity, like what the average connections were for the couple of years leading up, to see that there are going to be changes. Because I think some people think this is the big saviour of life, but unfortunately I don't think it is. And then on page 5, up the top left-hand corner, you've got chemicals, which is spelled completely incorrectly, but that's just a little thing that can be changed. But it says, and treated to remove bacteria and chemicals before being distributed. I didn't think we'd be actually sucking up water that had chemicals in them to go into our plants. Is that supposed to read something else, that the bacteria is actually getting treated with chemicals? Is that somehow a misprint, or?
One of the recommendations is to delegate to the chief executive to make minor corrections. So there will be a few like that you can look at with checks. Going back to your first comment on the numbers, and I'll throw to you next, but as our representative on the Wellington Water Committee, through this process, and with the revelations of the recent reports from Wellington Water, the position that the other councils over the hill that have taken leading into their entity and for us is that the numbers that we have been provided to date are the best numbers we have available right now. These things take time to create and review, and there isn't time to redo those numbers before we go to consultation. That said, those numbers will continue to be reviewed and revised as we work through the process, both through this consultation and into the lead up of the creation and stand up of whichever entity comes out the other end of consultation. Anything further to add?
Yeah, so it's important that under both option 1 and option 2 to understand that the same inputs have been used. So we've got 2 graphs moving together with new input numbers from Wellington Water. They will both come down, but the differential between the 2 will pretty much remain the same. What it will impact on probably is that some of our other potential partners, that the Wairarapa Whareroa entity will have less potentially investment, less debt, which will make the difference between their existing and that better. If we are currently comprising 36% of the investment that's required in the new entity, if our numbers change and it's not the $220 million, we won't make as large a proportion of that, and there won't be as much debt and investment required in the new entity. So it should look better in the future. But in terms of comparing option 1 and option 2, it's the same investment in both of those models that will move up and down together. It doesn't change that.
Like personally, I would have liked to see a third option of a a more local thing. Is the reason that wasn't done, is it more the time pressures you're under and the amount of work that has to be done to it, or?
We looked at a single council CCO when you did the multi-criteria analysis last year. And a single council CCO was not the preferred option, went quite low in terms of the options that we looked at last year, because all of the establishment costs and all of the compliance and regulatory costs would have to be carried by the single council. So which makes it quite expensive.
So it's very, thanks, Robin. Awesome.
Plummer, did you have a final question? Is your hand is still up? Is that still up from your last
Oh, sorry,
question?
sorry.
Perfect. And Councillor Olds, did you want to round us out and go to the recommendation?
Sure, I'm happy to do that if there's no other questions, yeah. So I guess this journey started last year when we entered into conversations with the, as the advisory oversight group with the Wellington Regional Model, and having attended a number of those meetings as we progressed through the documents and with their advisors, it became quite clear that the fit was not quite right for us in the Wairarapa. And I think we obviously discussed that around the table here at the time, and it was pretty much agreed upon by the other councils that were involved, Masterton and Carterton, at the same time, that the fit could look quite different if we worked pretty close together. I guess to some extent the icing on the cake was Tararua entering into those conversations as well, because Tararua were a little bit of an outlier. They had either Southern Hawke's Bay or Manawatu Wanganui to tap into, but the fit once again and the synergies between South Wairarapa and Eketahuna, Dannevirke, Paeatua, Woodville, etc., were very similar to ours here in the South Wairarapa. So the fit was actually very much along the same lines as we've got. So obviously this council chose to withdraw from the Wellington Regional Model and put its focus and emphasis on the Wairarapa Tararua proposal. We've had a number of meetings. In fact, we've been meeting weekly as an advisory oversight group in Masterton, chaired by Mayor Tracy from Tararua, and we've had some very meaningful conversations about how we progress. This is an option, obviously. And I have to say that the work that the project team led by Robin has done has been remarkable, given the short time frame that we've asked for the information, because we placed some fairly heavy demands on the project team to deliver. Obviously, we've got some requirements under legislation timelines that we have to meet. So I'm very grateful to Robin and the team, Johannes, Mass, Peter. They really work well together, and it does show that we can actually work very well together as different councils with different thoughts and different methodologies. So I'm very grateful for that. So I guess the rest is over to our communities now to make the decision. So thank you, Melissa. Thank you.
And just to follow on from that, this consultation document does put us in a arguably one of the most important consultations that our community will go through, certainly this training, but perhaps in a generation, the way we look at and provide water. So without further ado, I would like to move that we adopt the Local Water Done Well Delivery Model Options Consultation Document, that we delegate authority to the Chief Executive to approve minor edits that don't change the intent of the content prior to publication of the Local Water Done Well Delivery Model Options Consultation Document. Janice, can I now just read the note that the minutes of the Advisory Oversight Group meetings held in public excluded sessions will be released upon the publication of all Local Water Done Well Delivery
Sorry, Melissa,
Model.
before we do that,
Yes.
is what I talked about in terms of making it very clear that the bills are just transferred to the new entity? Would that be included as a minor edit, do you think, or not?
Yes.
Through the chair. It is actually stated in the financial strategy for council that will be adopted as an underlying document to the long-term plan consultation document. And it says future charges for water related costs would come from the new entity, and the indicative pricing is included in the consultation document for local water storm well proposal for Wairarapa Tararua. So we
That's
do
the-
already have it stated.
I,
in
I,
one of
I
the-
understand. I understand we do have it in other documents, but this is the document that people are going to read, and they're not going to seem to. I'm just worried that they'll miss that. And if we're talking about transparency, we just want to make it very clear that this isn't the panacea to say, oh, all the bills are going away.
No,
and
I don't think
basically
that
one
changes
line
the
saying, you know, you will be billed.
We can cover that through engagement.
Janice is saying we can cover it through engagement.
Okay.
If people ask, that would only be done though if people ask, rather than anyone that reads it.
I would argue that adding that sentence doesn't change the intent of the content, so it could be added under recommendation 3.
Or even in the question and answer page there, you know, something in there that.
Frequently asked, added as a frequently asked. Frequently
Yeah, cool.
asked question.
Great, thank you.
Sorry, back to number 4. Note that the minutes of the advisory oversight group meetings held in public excluded sessions will be released upon the publication of all local water done well delivery model option consultation documents for the Wairarapa Tararua participating councils.
Yep.
So I've moved it. I'm looking for a seconder for 3. Councillor Gray. All those in favour, please say aye. All
Aye.
those against? No. All those against? No. Motions are carried. Quite the momentous occasion. Sorry, please take a moment to pause, and I'll fill the gap by extending my grateful thanks to Councillor Olds, who has been our rep on the advisory oversight group for some time now, starting with the Wellington option and then into the Wairarapa Tararua option. Has provided excellent update and feedback to this table, and has been a fabulous appointee for us. So thank you, Colin, and I will hand over to Janice to say a few words.
Would like to on this journey for the Sandpoint community at the front and centre of everything that you've done for this. It hasn't always been an easy journey, I know, but I am, as you'll see, eternally grateful. Yes,
Janice, I want to read out that email from Tracy. Me to do it. No.
Deputy Chair.
This morning, the AOG members received an email from Chair of the AOG, the Advisory Oversight Group, Mayor Tracy Collis of Tararua, and Councillor Olds will read that for us now.
I've got to find it first. Just give me 2 secs. Morena Katoa. May I again extend our gratitude from the AOG for all the tremendous work our teams have put in, and to the project leads, finance leads and chief executives who have worked tirelessly to bring the Wairarapa Tararua work together so well and diligently. The way this has been carried out gives great promise of a collaboration and working together and what can be achieved in the future of water. We have all incredible talent within our councils. Tracy Collis, Mayor.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Violet, it's come to my attention that you may have had your hand up during the section for acknowledgements, and because of the way I'm seated with my back to you, that I have missed that. Would you like to do your acknowledgement now?
Yeah, I I want to for a tribute for Reverend Sally Turner, who passed away the other day.
Auntie Sally, yeah, I forgot.
And Also, extend congratulations to our two kapahaka rotu that represented Wairarapa. So it's pretty
Oh,
cool for
beautiful.
Rangitane. And Te Rangiru Irawa Wairarapa, who got quite a few accolades and awards for their performance. So, yeah, paki.
Mm,
Wonderful, thank you, Carla.
yeah.
Our next agenda item is the adoption of the 2024 long-term plan consultation. I'm just going to take a 2-minute adjournment for a comfort break, and then we will come back to discuss and look to adopt that document. So just 2-minute adjournment.
It's the new thing.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for those 2 minutes. As I mentioned before we went to the adjournment, the next item on our agenda is the adoption of the 2025-2034 long-term plan consultation document. During the break, we at this table have received the signed and finalised audit opinion. And so I propose to adjourn again for 10 minutes to allow members to read this finalised document. We will return at 11:05 for debate and to review the recommendations before us. So we'll adjourn again.
Melissa, can you send me a copy, please?
Yes, and tomorrow.
Is there another
Thank you.
copy? Please, I don't know.
Did I
Fabulous. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your patience. We are set now to look to adopt the 2025 to 2034 long-term plan consultation. Work on this consultation document and the draft LTP itself has been ongoing for a number of months. They have involved numerous workshops with multi criteria focus. We've looked at a lot of things. We've debated, we've discussed, we've talked, and we've had a lot of information given to us, which has come together to produce this document. To address the elephant in the room, it is unfortunate that through the audit of this consultation document, we have received an adverse opinion, but I don't think it should, and I certainly don't want it to overshadow the work that has gone into this document, or the results that are proposed for particularly years 1 and 2, which are a direct response to information that has been given to us, feedback, requests, and information given to us by our community. It was certainly important to us as a council that with 2 consultations running side by side, that being Local Water Done Well, which we've just adopted, and LTP, that both documents spoke to one another and told a single truth. And that's where we've landed. And I congratulate all of you and our staff for holding true to that desire of transparency. So Ms. Ansell, please come to the table. And I believe that Janice, you will also talk to this document in Paul's absence. And Charles online, fantastic. Take the paper and the document as read, but please do highlight the process and any areas of particular interest.
Thank you, Chair. There is a procedural process for adopting the consultation document, and before we can do that, as a council, you need to adopt the underlying information, the supporting information that is listed in the resolution before you. These are the documents that underpin the consultation itself. This is the area that has led council to receive an adverse opinion, because part of that underlying information is the capital investment programme for waters, and as the chair has just said, we have taken the approach that we will keep waters in the underlying information, even though there is a strong likelihood that from year 3 of the LTP it would no longer be under council control. We felt that, and the table felt that it was important for the community to understand the impact of having to deal with 3 major investment programmes for wastewater treatment, and the impact that that would have on the future borrowing capacity of this council if we were having to do this on our own. So that's really the underlying purpose or reason for the adverse opinion. In terms of technical compliance, the adverse opinion is correct in that technically what we are showing in the documents is a breach of our debt ceiling. But again, this is purely because of the convergence of the 2 parts of the Local Government Act requirements and the Local Waters Done Well under the bill coming together in one document. So I just want to reassure you that this does not impact the questions that we're asking of our community. It does not impact the first 2 years, and from 27 onwards we would be doing a new LTP. We will be back on cycle for a new LTP for 2027-37. So I am strongly supporting what we have and what you have put forward in your consultation today.
Councillor Maynard.
Are we just able to clarify, Janice? So with regards to it, this is has come from audit from the Office of the Auditor General to with regards to our consultation document, and however, so this it doesn't then so we have now put through, sorry, let me just quickly try and get my head around. We have now confirmed that we are putting out the consultation document to the local waters done well, which will move through. So we will have an answer somewhere there, which will give us, when we actually come out with our long-term plan, a better understanding. So what is on here with regards to the consultation document may in fact then be removed because we're able to put the information. But to go out with a consultation document, to me, without those numbers, looks like we've made predetermination that I just think wouldn't be fair to any of our ratepayers. So for me, it's just to have that understanding that this is affecting the consultation document and what we then put out with our long-term plan. When we get to that point after doing consultation, may look quite different.
Through the chair, you're totally correct. This opinion only is live, if you like, for the length of the life of the consultation document itself. So when we move through hearings and deliberations, you will make decisions on the actions you want to take, and then we will move through to final LTP. That will be audited again. If by that time the community feedback has come through and again you've made a decision around your local waters done well preference, the LTP will then reflect that decision.
Thank you.
So this is only attached to this document. It doesn't transfer to the long term.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Janice at this point? Councillor Woodcock.
Yeah, I'd just like to state firstly, I'm highly disappointed in Audit New Zealand. We've had to wait till a couple of minutes ago to get the copy of that document. And I'm pretty sure there's others in the room that feel the same way. I just like so I love the look of the consultation document. Just simple things like just showing people how much we've actually increased figures for water in recent years is great. So yeah, well done to this.
Yeah, and I think I would follow it up with, so this is my first time being involved in a long-term plan as a first-term councillor. So we've had annual plans and we've had enhanced annual plans, and this is the first long-term plan that we've been involved in, and it has felt thought like a tightrope act, trying to balance up legislative pressures with the best needs of our community. And I think that we've done a pretty good job. It's, you know, probably pretty early days, we're patting ourselves on the back, but I think, you know, from a decision-making point of view, the processes that we've been through, the discussions that we've had, the meetings that we've had, that just you, Janice, have done in the background and keeping us all informed about this has been very good. So whilst it is difficult to go out with an adverse opinion, it's highly unusual circumstances, and I'm very comfortable with the work that we've done and happy with where we've got to.
Yeah.
Any comments or questions before we, sorry, just checking behind me before we carry on? So I would just like to thank you all for the months and months of work that have gone into getting to this place. I would like to thank you for your willingness to commit to a robust engagement schedule moving forward, because the most important thing we can do now is to ensure that as many people in our community as possible are aware of this document, are able to engage with this document, engage with us, have their questions answered, and ultimately provide their feedback. I look forward to working not only with yourselves, but our community boards in ensuring that that happens, because what we are not looking for here is people just to tell us that they agree with us. We are looking for all opinions and all feedback to help us best shape the future moving forward. You know, please continue to spread the word about how people can engage with this document and engage with us. And If anyone has anything further to say, I'll look to move to the recommendations. So we have 4 recommendations. Sorry, how many do we have? Right, we have a number. So I'm going to take them one by one because some of them are lengthy. So firstly, do I have a mover, please, to receive the 2025-34 long-term plan consultation document and supporting information report? Thank you, Councillor Woodcock, and seconded by Councillor Maynard. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, no. Motion is carried. Number 2 is lengthy. Number 2 is, as Jenna spoke to, the adoption of all of the underlying documentation. And correct me if I'm wrong, but all of these documents will also be available to our community on the website. So this is public information that will help support everything else that we have available.
And for those that don't have access to a website, they're able to get them from coming into the council.
It would take a few trees to put them all, because
Yeah.
that's quite a lot of hard, but they are.
Or they could use the local library computers or,
Absolutely.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, come in and just support.
So thank you. Great question. So recommendation number 2, adopt the supporting information to be provided alongside the consultation document, including the draft infrastructure strategy, the draft 2025 significance and engagement policy, the draft environmental scan, the draft fees and charges for 2024-25, the draft LTP 2025-34 significant assumptions for consultation, draft revenue and financing policy P1 FDT 001, draft financial contributions policy, the draft LTP 25-34 accounting policies, forecast financial statements, draft prospective long-term financial plan. Draft prospective long-term plan financial statements, which is in addition to the report. The draft LTP to 25-34 financial strategy for consultation, draft postponement of rates policy 2021 M1200, draft treasury management policy P1 FDT 003, the draft remission and postponement of rates on Māori freehold land P1 FDT 005, and the draft significant activities and levels of service, which is also in addition to the report. Janice, these are in draft because they're drafted until they are adopted at the time of the adoption of the LTP. So looking for a mover. Thank you, Councillor Gray and Councillor Bosley as our seconder. All those in favour of adoption of all supporting documents, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All those against, no. The motion is carried. And then the next substantive recommendation is the adoption of the 2025-2034 long-term plan consultation document. I'm happy to move that one and I'm looking for a seconder.
I'm happy to second it.
Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, no. The motion is carried. And the last two we'll take together. Number 4,
Sorry,
authorise.
before we do the last two, could we talk about the oral submissions date? Because when we had our workshop last week, I'm pretty sure I read that there's a number of us are not going to be here during the date for oral submissions. Talked about that, and Janice, you had some options on that minute you put out.
So the oral submissions, the date for oral submissions for the consultation will be to 16 April with a backup day of 17 April. I think the
That's right in the middle of school holidays.
is that it falls in the middle of school holidays and some will be away.
I don't believe the same rules apply to the hearings for this as they do for the representation review. I think the representation review complication was you had to have heard the oral submissions before you could make a decision that was legislated. And so long as you have had access to all submissions, you can still go through deliberations and adopt your LTP. So it's unfortunate that it is where it is, but with the losing a week with the audit, we've had to push the dates, unfortunately, into that time frame. And there isn't a lot of wiggle room in there in order to get to where we need to get to. So it's unfortunate, but we can't move it.
Councillor Plymouth, any further comment before?
No, well, that's, maybe I misread what you gave to us last Wednesday, but I was sure that if we were adopting the adverse thing, we were going to delay the hearings by a week as well, or until after the school holiday period, because it affects the local water done well hearing as
That
well.
was for the other alternate plan.
Which we declined.
So with that in mind, so we're looking at the last two, authorise the chief executive to make any minor editorial amendments to the documents, and 5, approve the following process of consultation. That the consultation is open from 7 March through until 6 April 2025. The oral submissions for the 2025-34 relating to consultation. The oral submissions for 2025-34 relating to the long-term plan consultation were heard on the 16th of April with a backup day of 17 April 2025. C, that deliberations for the 2025-34 long-term plan will take place 14 May 25, and that final adoption for the 2025-34 long-term plan is set down as June 25th, 2025. Thank you. Councillor Maynard moves, Councillor Gray to second. All those in favour of the final two, please say aye. All those against? No.
I'm against 5B, but for everything else.
With that in mind,
Will councillors be able to Zoom if they aren't able to be here in person?
thank you, sir.
Fantastic, thank you.
The motion is carried. Thank you very much. So that is two very important documents adopted today. Good work, everyone, and does draw us to a close of this meeting this morning. We will close with our closing karakia, which is also beautifully put on the wall. So please join me in our closing karakia this morning. Ora mutu, amata.
Mo tēnei wā, ia mai mātou kaso, o mā te ho, o mā te
Wā.
te rāwangi.
Well done.
Thank you, nice to meet you. Have a holiday, Malta.